Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Rotation, a Call of Duty League focused podcast brought to you by Minnesota Røkkr and this lovely cast of rotational characters. We got me, Ashley, aka MiDNiTE. We got Kingdom Soldier. And then we got IKON today. He's got only his photo on today because, I forget the excuse he said. I'm pretty sure, there's some sort of, his cousin's doing the show for him or something. I'm not really sure. He's catfish. No, just kidding. IKON, you good? You good?
Oh yeah, I'm down bad with allergies, so I figured the last thing you guys would want to see is me just like bawling in the camera. So I'm still here to talk, but just figured it'd be best not to show my face.
Honestly, I love the dedication. I mean, you don't have to come through, but it's almost like you have to come through for roster mania talk. And there's been some developments. There's been one confirmation and then a bunch of pseudo confirmations from the different pros that are in the league. There's a ton of rumors out right now of what these rosters are going to be going into next season. And honestly, it's got me a little shook. There's some changes in there where I'm like, I didn't know that, or that seems weird. That's weird. What's the TikTok? That's suspicious. Anyway, I'll be really interested to kind of see how it rolls out. So I mean, first things first, let's talk about the big old elephant in the room. LAG, they're the first and I think only team to announce and confirm their 2022 roster for the CDL season next year. What are your guys' thoughts? They squad wiped. They even wiped their academy team. They had 0 people on the roster. I don't think they made a coaching change. I think Bevels is still there. But yeah, they've got Slasher. Who is it? Hold on.
Slasher, Gunless, Hook, and Asim.
Okay, yeah. I was like Hook, Slasher, Gunless, and Asim. Shout out Asim. I think that's kind of a nasty roster. My first impression was okay, they're nasty, but I don't know if they're nasty. You know what I mean? They're gonna be good, but I don't know if they're gonna where that ceiling's at for them. That's my first impression. I have a little more too, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Kingdom, do you want to watch I forgot, they had an announcement video. You guys want to watch that first before we get into it?
Let's get it.
Let's watch it.
Got some interesting decisions to make across the board. I'm not really sure what they're going to do.
Got the audio from the flank.
Tags, pushes him back. Slasher finishes the job. 27 and 19 for him right now. Over he goes immediately, and Slasher is simply snapping his way.
I don't know if the stream's good audio. I lost audio, but
no, we don't have audio. Oh, here it comes.
I hear it now.
Oh, it faded in.
That was cool. This edit and the music's honestly kind of fire.
I guess you disrupt some of that time. But maybe not now.
CM was so nasty last year.
Streets once again. Hook is just doing it all at 21 and 11.
Oh my god, doesn't finish the kill. Hook though. Got number 3. The ace!
That was nutty. Dang.
Yeah, it was a dope vid.
Did you guys
look at IKON's smile?
Yeah, IKON loved the video, bro. Look at him. He's like, hell yeah, that was sick. I dig that. I like the announcement video. Is they went the quicker route where you kind of have to just hire an animation team, or maybe maybe they have it internally, but they have this kind of dope the weaponry that those players are using, their names on the weapons, some of their nastiest clips of all time. I think it's honestly a decent roster, but I'm not sure it's gonna immensely surpass where LAG's been before. Kingdom, I'd love to know your thoughts first.
What a nice makeup of disgruntled roster. I don't want to say the word rejects, but Asim got thrown around by NYSL. He was definitely verbally not happy with what happened with Clayster. Slasher got dropped and put back on the roster only to show up at champs and do not that great. Hook was dropped from multiple teams and had a whole bunch of slander on the timeline. Crim6 was going to make a big old video, which of course is not happening anymore. And I think and then you have Gunless, who kind of has been on not a good roster. He got dropped from the Huntsman when he was on their team when it was 5v5 with Modern Warfare, and then this year he just couldn't find success. And so Although I did hear Octane say that the gunless of new is not the gunless of old in terms of like being difficult to play with and all that kind of stuff, because him and Slasher would definitely clash if that was the case. But I think this is a roster of people who are going to have a rivalry when they play almost any team. And so definitely going to do better than the LA Thieves team, I think, of this past season and the 19,000 iterations of their roster that they had.
You think LAG will be better than LA Thieves next year?
No, than the LA Thieves we had this year. Like the LA Thieves of Cold War,
like Slasher,
I think they're better
Duke
than that team. Yeah, because that team did like Kenny, Slasher, TJ, like Venom, all the different iterations of that roster. They had a lot of potential. They just never followed through. Beginning of the league, the beginning of the year, they were top 6 for like most of it, you know, and then they got 7th or 8th. But I think that this is like an enemy type roster. Like I like that Slasher tweeted out like just Thanos walking out of the clouds, like, you know, when he's about to beat Doctor Strange. Like I think that they could make a whole play on that like all year long. And if the only thing I'm looking for on this team is who the heck is their leader, I would think of course that's going to be Slasher. But if he leads in those Slasher ways that we've heard about of the past, I mean, is someone like Hook going to be responsive to that? I wouldn't think so. Asim will be fine with it because he's played with Clay. And then Gunless is known to have difficulty with kind of egotistical leadership. And that's in a good and bad way, like a good ego like a Scump or a bad ego like a Slasher. Like, you know, he's had difficulty dealing with those type of leaders. So I'm interested to see how the team plays. But I think they're going to be good. I would almost a guaranteed top 6, like maybe even a top 4. Like, yeah, this is going to be a good roster. I mean, look at the team. If Hook plays, and this is a similar engine to Modern Warfare, where he was a world champion and was just ridiculous, like I think this could be a great team. And Asim has proved no matter what team he's on, especially the last year or so, he's been just at the top of the game when it comes to submachine guns. And so I'm looking forward to how these guys play. Looking at some of that Vanguard gameplay today, I've started to formulate in my head, like who's going to be good and how the game's going to work with the different roles. And so I think they're a good roster, though. I tip it to LAG. This is the best roster they've had, in my opinion.
For sure.
Came into existence.
I agree there, for sure. I think the biggest question mark is Hook, for sure. I mean, certainly. Like, how does he rebound this year? I'll be interested to see. Icon, what are your thoughts on LAG?
Yeah, so my first take when I look at LAG is that if everything goes right, and again, like kind of Kingdom talk through, there's like if you're a betting person, you're probably not going to bet so much on everything going right for LAG this year, just because that's kind of how the past has been the last couple of years, especially for some of these players. But I think if everything goes well for LAG, I think maybe they compete with like the middle of the road teams. I don't think that their ceiling is higher than 6th or 7th. And a lot of that is just because what has been created, what has been formed by a lot of these other rosters in this roster mania. Like you look across the board at the top 6, or who I would put in the top 6, there are almost no holes anywhere. And I think you can say the same thing for LAG. I think when you look at LAG, and again, if everything goes perfectly, you have the roles picked out to a T, right? You have Slasher, who can compete with the vast majority of main ARs. We've seen Gunless have his moments over the last couple years. Even last year, there was a point in time where for the majority of the season, Gunless was Seattle's best player. And then you look at Asim. Once Hydra came in and Asim was matched up next to Hydra, they were the best hardpoint duo through like the middle 3 stages of the Black Ops Cold War season. And then when it comes to Hook, at the beginning of last year, there was no doubt about it. For the first stage and a half or so, Hook was the best player in the league, and it wasn't even close. I mean, he was absolutely shredding. He had a ton to do with why Dallas had so much success at the beginning of the season. So when I look at this LAG roster, I look at it as if everything can go perfectly, I think they have all of the pieces. They have the route man. They have the SMG Slayer. They have the flex, the main AR that can compete. But still, when I compare them against some of those other 6 teams, those top 6 teams like Atlanta, I think they would have to be on their absolute A+ game to hang with Atlanta. And that's in Atlanta that might be having, like, maybe Celium's having a bad day or something. Like, I think, again, everything, map selection, map count, I think everything would have to go in LAG's favor just to compete there. But I do think, I agree 1,000%. When you look at where LAG has been in the past, they have not had a roster like this to get behind. So if you're an LAG fan, or if you're part of the org, or just anything associated with LAG, I think you have to be really pleased, because now you could potentially see, like, okay, let's go to the first major. Maybe LAG makes a run. I don't think you can put that past them. I think if LAG is playing NYSL or another team in the middle, like, now I think, okay, maybe they can hang with some of those squads in the middle. I don't think they're going to beat those at the top, like the Torontos, the Atlantas. I think there's a lot of teams that are also in that same group. But I do think that it's they're in the best position that they've been in, and I'm interested to see. I think the first major, or however the next season works, just comparing it to what we did last year, I think the first major will be very telling for this squad. I think if they come out and they play well, then I think that is a bit of an upward trajectory for them moving forward. I think if they come out and they get absolutely smack, say they go 1-4 in group play, or however it ends up being, and they're losing to teams like Seattle or London or some of those other, like, 10 through 12 squads that you would think right now, I think it could turn quickly. So it's the best position they've been in, but I want to see it before I really get behind them.
Sorry, I started talking with my mic muted. Classic MiDNiTE. JK in the chat said, I think the only team with that team will be the intensity of their ups and downs. They are the most emotive, hype players outside of Clay and Persini. I don't know how a player like Hook will manage. Yeah, we've seen some greatness from Asim. Same with Gunless. Hook, we know his raw talent. Slasher, excellent leader. I feel like we haven't seen enough from Slasher or Hook in the last year or two to really... Like, if you were to talk about this roster like 2 years ago, we'd be like, oh my gosh, they could win champs. Like, it would be a way different story. Maybe, Asim was pretty unknown at the time, but, like, it would be pretty hype. But now it's just there's not a whole lot of recency bias to go off of for me to be super hype about, like, yeah, these guys could make a run. To me, like, I respect all these guys, but I feel like this is like a top 8 team. I hope that they can turn it around, just for the sake of, like, I know that they're capable. So I'll be interested to see. Also in the chat, Hadler said LAG is just a team waiting to implode, which I kind of agree with. I think all of these people have strong personalities. So, maybe with time and maturity, I think we've watched Gunless mature a ton in his career. We'll have to see, how that kind of plays out with this team. I think with someone like Slasher, who, this guy's a world freaking champion, IGL, like one of the best to do it. I think he was unfortunately humbled in the last year or two. So I don't know. I'm hoping for a bounce back, but I just need to see it. I'm kind of with you, IKON. I need to see it. Kingdom's drinking the purple Kool-Aid. The wrong purple Kool-Aid in my opinion.
The thing with this roster is going to be its coaching staff and how the leadership works out. Everyone thought that Clay and Krim going together would never work. Like, when that originally happened, everybody was like, oh, this is just going to be horrible. Who's going to be the leader? Clay and Krim got mature, and they kind of looked at their placings together and their championship pedigree. I believe that if you are one of those, what is it? Just Clay, Krim, and Scump? Who else is left that's been a top player for the last 10 years, has multiple championships? Scump has one, but, he's got some...
Me.
X Games and MiDNiTE. So if you're one of those players, like, then you need another GOAT alongside, and MiDNiTE's got Shannon, and so then it's like
producer Shannon, let's go.
Then it's like, but I'm worried about, I know we're going to talk about, but I'm worried about Seth and how that works out. Everybody's, hyping up that team, but I'm like, there's something still missing there, in my opinion. I think for this team, what you don't have, Hook's not a veteran, but he is, like, low key. This dude started as like a little teenager. Like, this dude's been around. He's a multiple FPS champion. He's done it. Like, if he gets over the stuff that he had, but everybody has a chip on their shoulder on this team, and their upset potential is what's going to be ridiculously high. And they're the type of team that if they beat one top team in a tournament, they're going to be scary to the rest of the competition because they're just going to have that chip on their shoulder. Let them beat NYSL in a winner's bracket round 1 or something. Like, it's going to be scary for the rest of the teams they play. Now, IKON's right. FaZe, they're going to struggle against them. But I got to see FaZe play this game. I mean, we're talking about a brand new COD title, you know, and so a lot of what we're saying, it depends on roles and what's important in the game and who's the best at each and every part. And I've seen a gun list that was just scary. Like, it was almost like Dashy scary, like the way he could shoot and the decision making he had in like search and stuff like that. And then his raw gun skill was ridiculous. So I'm looking forward to this team. And there's this guy named Asim that I really feel like on this team, he could really play to his highest potential if him and Hook really tag team well.
That is a really scary thought. I mean, Hook is just kind of like he's just gonna run around and murk people, but it seems pretty fundamentally sound, and he's that first guy in, and that's the hardest, one of the hardest jobs on the team, I think. Yeah, wow. So that, well, I guess there's one more, you know, kind of confirmed roster announcement that we can, or I guess thing that we could talk about before we get into these rumored squads. Minnesota ROKKR officially parted ways with Accuracy, which is hard. I mean, Iceman literally responsible for the most incredible play in competitive Call of Duty history that I've seen. I mean, I think back to Proofy's, you know, thing at, was it X Games, or maybe it was just during Ghost? I can't remember if it was X Games or Ghost.
Oh, yes.
I guess TK. Bro, insane. Like, that's the only clip that comes close to what Accuracy did here. And that wasn't even just one fluky clip. The guy was getting aces, clutches, left and right. He's a great leader, a great person to work with. I really liked working with him while he was on the team. So, you know, wish him the best. Nothing but the best of luck. He's a good guy. And yeah, I want to like him too, like Slasher. They're both really like strong personalities, strong leaders. I think they're really good friends outside of the game as well. So I'm interested to see, like, can the Iceman bounce back? I think he can. Which brings me into our first rumored roster, boys. These are rumors now. These are unconfirmed. We're just talking shit or stuff. Sorry, YouTube. Please don't demonetize me or fire me from my job. All right, CDL Intel, that's our sauce, okay? And who knows what their source is. Sources. Accuracy expected to lead Sib, Mac, and Pred on Seattle Surge's new roster. Those are all pretty familiar names to me. Sib is the up-and-coming, I would say, like, probably the most top amateur that is still in the amateur league, I would say. Mac Meltz obviously exploded onto the scene during Modern Warfare, played pretty well last year as well. Pred, he's Australian, right? Like, Australia's like best talent from Call of Duty. So he's expected to make some massive plays. I mean, think like Hydra. Everyone's like, oh my god, there's this crazy French guy who's mad good at the game. Maybe Pred could be that as well. And I like this team. I honestly do. If this is a real team, I think, like I said, Accuracy is a great leader, and you have some young, cracked talent on this team. If Accuracy can get these guys to play his way a little bit, which I think he's, you know, going to evolve of his play style over time too, how he leads. So I'm excited to kind of see how this team performs. Are you excited? Do you think this is a decent team? Do you think this is going to unsink the Surge? Will they finally stop drowning themselves out? What do you guys think? IKON, I'll let you rock first. Also, IKON, I love how excited you look.
Yeah, he's just like cheesing at Accuracy.
I've been smiling this whole show.
He's looking at the Twitter feed like, I love Roster Mania. Like, he's mad hype. But yeah, I'd love to. What are your thoughts on the rumored Seattle Surge here?
Yeah, so again, the biggest problem with some of these squads that many people would put down towards the bottom of their power rankings is that the top 7 squads, they have no holes anywhere. Like, even you look at LAG, when it comes to LAG, who I think is probably 7th of those top 7 squads, I think the only way that they don't have success is if something goes wrong chemistry-wise. Like, there are no holes. They have every role filled. And you could say that about LA Thieves. You can say that the other 7 squads who I have in the top, there's no holes. So when it comes to Seattle, I think you basically just start off by saying, well, there's 2 unknowns there. And when it comes to those 2 unknowns, when it comes to Pred and Sib, yeah, they have had a ton of success last year in challengers. If you look at that Asia Pacific region and what Pred was able to do, I mean, his squad basically won everything. There's like a fourth sprinkled in or like a second sprinkled in on certain tournaments. But other than that, his squad basically just ran the board. And then when you look at those that do have experience in the CDL, I think accuracy, you already touched on it, but I think when it comes to his clutch ability, there really aren't too many people that have that ability the same that he does. But I do think in certain game modes, I think the game might have been a bit too fast. I think his play style suited really well in 5v5. I think when he could just play that main kind of lockdown main AR mode, I think that's where he was best. I think we saw a bit this year, despite I thought he had a pretty decent year. I thought he played pretty well overall.
He didn't play bad.
No, not at all. None whatsoever. But we saw in the last roster move when Mike came aboard and started playing with a bit more unpredictability and he was playing a bit faster. That's where, in addition to Standy, of course, that's where things started to take off. So I think that if you had to look at, okay, you're Seattle, you have to get a veteran main AR. I mean, you didn't have to, but from what's there, I think he's definitely a great person to come in, lead that squad, especially if it's full of AMs. I mean, who could you really ask for in terms of having a better leader to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do in game and out of game? So I think he fills that role really well. I'm just not sure if you're talking about actual gameplay, how is he going to match up with Cammy and Insight and Arcides and Celium and Clay and Crim and the list goes on and on, right?
I mean, you just gave me nightmares, bro.
I mean, and that's the thing. These top 7 squads are so filthy that you have to be loaded at every position at this point in time to compete with those top 7. And then the last person to kind of mention here was Mac. And I think there were times where we watched NYSL play and Mac, again, could have been the best player on their roster. And that's saying a lot with Hydra there and Clay there and what Asim did throughout the year. But there were absolutely some matches where Mac absolutely went off and he led that squad. The problem is that we need to see a bit more consistency. So I think when it comes to the squads that are rumored out there, not quite sure what's going to happen with like London, or I think Florida's probably taking a big hit. So I think that Seattle probably competes with those bottom 5. I don't think they're going to get blown out and we're going to see them in 12th in the power rankings or anything like that as the year plays on. But I don't know. I just look at those top 7 squads. I'm just not sure how they compete because everybody is so loaded at every position in the top 7.
Yeah, I'd say pretty much the same. I think this is a top 10 team, and the only reason I say that is because I don't know who's going to be on the Paris Legion or the Chicago NRG, whatever team that's going to be. And so if you look at the rumors, it's tough scenes, for a squad like this. I think they have the ice and the ability to pull off some upsets, and to do some great plays and have some great search plays, but to win an event would be a miracle. I think the teams that are forming, the talent stacking that's taking place in the league, it just really. Octane said something on his Roster Mania video about this squad. He said they're either going to be good, or really bad. And I kind of agree. I think it's going to depend on how they play the game. If I remember, Lamar was pretty good at World War II, so
Super.
I mean, he's got something there for him, and who knows what that third game mode's going to be, so. I'm looking at this roster though, and it's mostly unknown how they're going to play together. But if I had to bet this roster versus the LAG roster we just talked about, I'd say that LAG would probably, out of 3 matches, win 2 of them. So they're more consistently going to win. Seattle Surge, it's the threequel for them. They're going to be 8 through 12. If they get 8, it's going to be because they consistently beat Florida. That's going to be that kind of weird roster where I think we're going to see, and who knows, with London with 0 back, maybe that'll be a better team, and so this team could find themselves like relegated out of champs again and have that 3rd year in a row of lacking success. And I feel bad for accuracy, but I also feel good for accuracy because he's back in the league, and he got himself a spot and he's going to make the most of it, He hangs out with Zuma. He seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders, and he can mold young talent, and that's what's going to take here. You know, he might want to call Clay and get some tips, you know, or Krim. I think that, to Icon's point, some of the rosters that are being formed, this roster just doesn't really stack up. It almost, and I'm just going to say this, this is no shade. It almost feels more like a challengers roster than a pro league roster.
Kingdom has spoken. But I'm gonna say something ignorant. This team is top 7, and they'll be better than LA Thieves.
Whoa. Okay.
Save that clip, Shannon. Unless I'm wrong, then now I never said that if I'm wrong. But dude, I think it's possible. I don't know. Yes, I do agree. This looks like an AM team. You got like, you know, dudes on the come up like Sib and Pred, but Pred's apparently nasty. Max, very capable, and Accuracy's a great leader. So like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just very biased. I'm always biased towards former Røkkr players. I do think Accuracy's legit as frick. And I think this team could be better than we're thinking. So I guess, I mean, to kind of, actually, JK in the chat again, we'll be interested to see the AMs like Sib Pred on LAN instead of their home connections as well. Yeah, that's super valid. And I think that's, I mean, it's also true, too, that, like, Pred is going to be, I think, coming over and playing, like, NA talent, like, exclusively now for the first time, I think, in his career. So that'll be interesting as well. That was something that I was wondering, you know, is Hydra as good as he's made out to be if he's not even playing the top talent in the world that's over here in the league in North America, but he's proven that he belongs here and he's super good compared to the North American. So I'll be super stoked to see if Pred can kind of follow in those footsteps. I think the fact that this isn't, like, if this was like Accuracy and like Apathy and a couple like the old guard dudes, I'd be like, yeah, they're probably going to get smoked. But I think because they have some younger guys, like, you never know, man, with some of these teams. There's going to be at least a team or two that we're thinking right now is, they won't even be top 8, and they're going to turn some heads. So moving on here through the other rumors, CDL Intel tweeted sauces. What's you guys' favorite sauce?
Ranch, probably. Ranch? I can dip that. I can put pizza in there and chicken.
Really? Oh man.
I'm going Chick-fil-A sauce.
Dude, I was gonna say I stopped eating Chick-fil-A. But,
yeah,
dude,
I stopped eating chicken, so I can't even. Feels bad. Yeah, I know.
I do want to get buried in the Chick-fil-A sauce. Like, that's just put me in there. Just put me in there. But sauces say Toronto Ultra are expected to stick together. My math makes sense. They're one of 3 teams last year, as well as Minnesota Røkkr, who won last year. That didn't fully solve for me, though. I mean, I think in the last episode I was saying I think Kleenex could be out. You know, I think he could maybe be going somewhere else. I mean, and kind of unrelated. And I'll bring us back, but like, it's freaking crazy if there is still that Chicago slot. If it's NRG that's going to retain it, if they're trying to sell it to somebody else who's going to come in, they are getting fricked in roster mania right now. It's by the look of these rumored rosters, a lot of the top talent is looking secured. And that has got to be scary if you're a franchise trying to come into the Call of Duty League, because I do think it's important and worth it, obviously, to buy into the Call of Duty League. But if you're late to the dang party, man, after roster mania and everyone's locked up already, that makes me feel weird. But yeah, so what do you guys think about Ultra sticking together? I think they could still not. They better, I mean, I'd expect, like, if this, you know how the site came out, the Call of Duty League site, confirmed, like, who had been extended.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Now, obviously, it's in the team's best interest to, if they can extend a player, even if they don't want to play them, to do that, because then they hold the rights of first refusal to that contract, and they also get a buyout fee that they may not have otherwise gotten, right? So it's in the team's best interest to re-sign these players if they can. So a lot of the re-signings that you saw on that website aren't real. Am I maybe hinting at something? We don't know. But Toronto Ultra was unable to extend Kleenex, I think, because his 1+1 was over. So they can still re-sign him, but they would have to renegotiate an entirely new deal, and he would be free to shop himself around, which may very well be what he's doing. And maybe he's made the decision already, but I just thought it was interesting that, who was it? Was it Cammy or someone else from Ultra, where, like, him and Kleenex kind of, and I didn't think it was bait, but they were kind of like, oh, this is how we're going to do this. Like maybe it was like a little bit of a negative vibe there. So I don't know. I'm not sold that Toronto's not going to change, but also CDL Intel, I don't know. Maybe they're right. Maybe their Chick-fil-A sauce is correct.
Yeah, I don't know. I look at Toronto, and I do think that the gap between Atlanta and Toronto and everybody else has gotten a bit closer, just because you've taken all of these pieces that were essentially in that 9 through 12 range, and the best players from all of those pieces are now included in these top 7 rosters. Like, again, I don't think there's really any holes anywhere. So when it comes to CleanX, I thought right away, and I know that there's a gazillion things that happened since then, but I thought when Optic released Envoy, and this was before Formal retired, I thought that would have been a perfect place for CleanX. I think you match him up alongside Scump and the roster that they did have, I feel like that is the super aggro entry SMG that Scump has kind of been missing. Now, as it all played out, he has Shotzzy, so I guess tomato, because now he's got a gross sub duo beside him. But if I'm Toronto, I still think when you're looking at power rankings overall, a lot of things can change, especially since Vanguard seems like it's a bit more of like Modern Warfare than it is Black Ops Cold War. So it seems like super fast time to kill. SMGs will probably be super important. So I think that they're probably still number 2 when it comes to power rankings. I'm really happy that they didn't split up, because even throughout Black Ops Cold War, they showed from the beginning basically to the end that they were the one squad that when they matched up against Atlanta, they could take them the distance. Who knows? Maybe they squeak one out. So I'm happy they didn't make a change. Now, if something does happen from here on out, if trades are made or whatever, that's a topic for a different story. But I just feel like they're another squad that when you look from top to bottom, they fill every one of those roles perfectly, and they match up really well, at least as well as you can against the Atlanta FaZe. And one other thing that I'll say, just because this kind of came to my mind, is that right now, when I'm looking at these top 7 rosters, I think these top 7 rosters are pretty much a lock as long as you have a 2 SMG, 2 AR meta. I think if that changes, I think a lot of what people are thinking might go out of the window. Because if you have to run 3 SMGs, all of a sudden, and this is what I've been thinking with the combination at NYSL with Crim and Clay, if you have to run 3 SMGs, I'm sorry, but they're not going to hang with Dashy running an SMG, even though it'll probably be Illy. They're not going to hang with Celium running an SMG or Kenny running an SMG, right? It's like everybody else's flex is way more capable to run an SMG than NYSL might be. And you can talk about their leadership and 3 rings and yada, yada. They've done so much, whatever. But it just feels like when the roles, if they don't match, I can't see Clay or Crim running an SMG and gunning with Celium. I think that, that widens the skill gap a bit. So all the way back to the beginning, I'm happy that Ultra stuck together. I'm interested to see if they can continue competing with Atlanta or if there's a bit of a drop-off with a different style game coming up.
I think, we're basing all of our reads of these rosters on Cold War and how the people performed in that game. I think I've really, ever since they dropped Zin, I've really admired Toronto. I just think that they were fundamentally sound, and you never, ever, ever could count them out. It was never chalked. They got themselves a chip. Yes, I agree with IKON that they were one of very few teams that could give FaZe a run for their money in a grand final. And I think that they should stick. And I'm just saying that because some dynasties are teams that stay together and win a lot. Some dynasties are teams that stay together and get close to winning a lot, and might win once or twice. We didn't have very many events this year. If you won one of the 5 majors, you should tip your hat and be pretty proud of yourselves.
You're incredible.
Yes, especially if you got the worst reverse sweep in esports history to lose one of them, and and in the other one, you made it to the grand finals, and so I think this was one of the most consistent teams on the year. And I'd like to see him stick. Like, to be blatantly honest, I think this team, I'm thinking about these players and their histories and what I've seen from them, and I don't think we have seen the best of Insight. I think we've seen the beginnings. I think he's like Standy, where we're about to see a great Call of Duty career, and we're going to get to watch him be one of the, he's going to be the Clayster of 5-6 years from now, where his gunny is going to stay disgusting. And every game he plays, he's just going to find ways to be good at every game. Krim was like that for a very long time. It was like, no matter what this dude touched, now he's had to lean into leadership a lot. But I would love to see this team stick together. I do think they would be. I couldn't put them below top 4 in preseason power rankings if they have this roster. I probably would at least put them in top 4. But everything else, I would just be guessing anyway. So, them and FaZe would be the 2 rosters that I could predict based on past, like what they did in the past. If they switched out Kleenex, I think their team would just struggle. There was a certain weird chemistry that they had, even with their coaching staff. Like, it just was like, it became this EU team, where it was like, all right, well, Toronto's just EU, and it would be nice if they were called the London Royal Ravens or the Paris Legion, but they're not. They're they're Toronto, and they happen to be from the other side of the pond. But they played well together. There was a weird amount of chemistry, and I think the rookie gameplay that we saw from Insight was legendary. And I don't see him even skipping a single beat going into this next game.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to watch. JK in the chat again, as Insight grows in power, so does the number of gold chains around his neck. Actually, I don't know the inside joke. Is he buying chains?
Maybe he's blinged out. I don't know.
Shoot. Listen, pay your taxes. That's all I'm gonna say. All right, the next rumor, which we can be quick about this one unless you guys have a ton to say about it. I think we talked a lot about this last week because this was a pretty strong rumored roster for the last episode. But the sauces from CDL Intel. What about you guys like yum yum sauce? Like a
it's good.
Seafood steak sauce.
Yep.
I don't know if you use it with steak a ton. I think it was stir fry. Anyway. Sauces from CDL Intel. Grim 6 Iron reunion with Clayster in New York. Neptune actively on Subliner's radar, and then no mention of Hydra. Got to assume that Hydra and Clay are going to stick. I still have the same thoughts as last week. For me, 2 really strong leaders. I think Krim and Clay works really well in 5v5, but I think in 4v4 it's going to be tough, especially as we just made the point of if the meta is, fast subs only or primarily fast subs, depending on the map, the team might struggle a little bit. But I would never put anything past 2 of the winningest players in Call of Duty history. So maybe they'll be super freak nasty. I like the reunion, but we'll have to see. We'll see if Neptune is going to have another good year here as well.
You want to let me gas up Krim before IKON chops him down?
As always, in true rotation fashion.
It went from Dallas this year. This season is going to be NYSL. That's going to be the new team for us to talk about. Because I'll just say it. I love Optic. I probably won't be overly cheering the Dallas Optic combination team or whatever they end up becoming. I'll probably stick with this Krim Clay combo. I like these guys. I honestly think this is wisdom showing itself. If I'm Clay, I would either go back and play with Seth or I'd go back and play with Krim. If I'm Krim, I'm not going to play with Seth. I think nobody said it. I don't know why I haven't heard this, but Krim got handed some fake bill of goods that, I don't even remember what the reason they gave him why they dropped him, from Dallas, but it had nothing to do with the real reason. Which was that,
would they say he was late all the time or something?
So, yeah, come on. Yeah. Like, he's a time torturer. I'm like, get out of here.
Bro, he's getting there first in his Porsche. He is.
Well, my thing is you don't drop Krim 6 because he's a time torturer. You drop him because you're bringing in Scump and he doesn't want to play with him. Like, I'll never forgive. I'll never forget.
Up. Just be straight up, man.
Like, that's the honest facts, and that's fine. Like, I honestly think if you're recruiting the second winningest player, but the most popular player in Call of Duty esports history outside of the Golden Boy Nadeshot, then of course you're going to drop whoever needs to be dropped to get him. That is literally a no-brainer, And so I have no problems with the way they ran that, the way they did it. I just wish there was some honesty. But I think Krim and Clay made a freaking ridiculously wise choice. Like, hey, we got Hydra. He's the next phenom. And then let's get this guy who's really good, but he hasn't been able to show his potential because he's playing on a team of other people that can't teach him. And that's what Florida Mutineers were for Neptune. They're a team full of people that couldn't teach Neptune the fundamentals of not just playing, but winning. And we saw what happened when NYSL dropped Clay. It went back to, let's try to figure this out. They didn't have the leadership piece. And so if Krim and Clay can figure it out, I somewhat agree with if it's a sub meta, well, that's going to hit every team. Every team's going to be impacted. And I think the way that New York would be impacted would make them not place top 2. But maybe they won't place top 2 anyway when these other rosters that are being formed, but again, I'm looking at a top 4 team in my opinion. I just really think that the fundamentals are going to be there. And it really is, to me, it's down to how this game plays. Because if Hydra plays like Simp or Neptune plays like Hook of Modern Warfare or like the beginning of last year, Cold War, there's going to be a bump in their SMG play enough that will make up for a little bit of a gap if they have to make one of these ARs into an SMG player. So I just like the verdict's out on this team, but I like the decision by the players and the organization. If you can get Crim6 and your NYSL is like this team that now they're digging into mobile in a way that like their mobile team just, won a regional tournament and they're going to Worlds and for $2 million. Like NYSL is making good moves, and I think this was one.
Did they announce anything about a coach since Revan's not there anymore? I might have missed that.
Good call. I don't know.
I don't think so. I haven't heard
That's I think we're gonna. Yeah, well. That's actually a good point. Good call out there. That I didn't even think about that piece.
Coach Clay while he plays. Coach Krim while he
there you go.
Watches. IKON, what are you thinking? Are you going to chop down Kingdom's optimism about
I'm ready for it.
As always?
Yeah, I don't know. I look at this NYSL squad, and I think that they're definitely firmly cemented somewhere in that top 7, probably somewhere in the 4 through 7 range. I think there are a bit of unknowns. Again, it is 4v4, so you do have 2 pretty stationary main ARs there. I mean, you can talk about their accolades and how much they've won, but there's no doubt about it that when you look at Priesta, you look at Cammy, you look at Celium, right? You look at some of these other flexes, they play the game way faster than Krim and Clay. Now, will that be will that be a positive for those squads? I guess that's something that's yet to be seen. But overall, I think that's the first big question mark is what does this game play like? Because it could really affect some teams pretty well, and some teams it could really be a detriment to them, like with NYSL. I will say, if this is a sub-heavy game and it plays really fast, I think that this season is probably chalked. I don't know how you compete with Atlanta FaZe. If this is sub-heavy, the game plays really fast, and Celium can be, put into that role, I don't know how you really keep up with them. I really don't. And in fact, I think if it is sub-heavy, I think that probably helps Minnesota as well. And we can save that, for a bit down the line. But you put Priest on an SMG, you're really not losing much. Think about what you would lose when it comes to Krim and Clay. You don't really lose that when it comes to Minnesota. But back to NYSL, the only other question mark that might be there is, like Kingdom mentioned with Neptune, he definitely had his moments. There were maps and matches that he took over in Black Ops Cold War. And when he was playing well alongside Skies and Awakening, that's when that team was really filthy. And we saw it throughout the season firsthand. There was like the first 2 or 3 matchups against Florida. We just could not get over that hump. Now, eventually it came down the stretch and we were able, to beat them. But at the beginning of the year, they just always seemed to pop off against us. And I think a lot of that had to deal with how Neptune was playing. So I do think that's another, at least a little bit of an unknown, but you put him in the same organization as Clay and Krim. There's no doubt about it that they're going to have these guys playing how they should be playing the game. And I'll just say, I think Neptune being pulled away from Florida easily puts them. I mean, I think that they're pretty far outside of that top 7 margin. I don't think that, even though they do have Skies and Awakening, I don't think that there's really any pieces left that they can pick up where they compete with an NYSL, an LA Thieves, a Minnesota ROKKR. Like, I just think that was probably a pretty big blow for them, and I'm not quite sure we're going to see them perform next year at the same levels that we saw in Modern Warfare and Black Ops Cold War.
Right. I can agree with those takes. The only thing I would add is I do know there was a time in the season where Clay was claiming that he was the fastest AR in the game, like, and it wasn't even close. It was when NYSL was like the top 2 team, like when they were up there with FaZe for that brief moment. This is going to be like, again, I like what you said about what it does for Florida, and I think that's where placement is going to end up landing. Is like certain teams are going to be pushed farther out than they already were because their good pieces got taken, by some of these larger teams. Like, and I think we're going to continue to see that over the years. I think the one thing we haven't talked about, and I know we can't because we have all these rosters that are blank, is there is good talent outside of the league that isn't in the league yet, that we could have seen in the league last year. And so it's going to be interesting what the heck kind of rosters we see from some of those bottom 4 teams, and if they can surprise us, But I agree, IKON keeps mentioning the top 7. I think that's a clear, it's like easy to look at, and then it's going to be, and we said this last year, who's going to get 8th? Like, that was kind of the debate, was who's going to get that 8th spot so they can go to champs. And that's what we watched all year, was what team was going to jockey for that position between Lag and Florida and LAT, and it's like going up and down and up and down. And for a while it was even like, are the Minnesota ROKKR going to get relegated? But they ended the season as best they could, which was great.
Yeah, it's honestly I almost get impatient talking during Roster Mania because I'm like, okay, if these are the real teams, like, let's freaking go. Like, let's do it. I want to see them play.
Let's do a tournament right now.
Come out. Yeah, I want the game to come out. Let's do a tournament. Turn your streams on. I'm trying to creep. I want to see what these teams look like. Here's another I don't know, you call it leaks coming from sources. I'm gonna stop sources. Coming from sources, CDL Intel tweets Octane likely running it back with LA Thieves. Envoy set to complete the roster, which would mean who else is there? Draza and
Kenny. I want to know IKON's take on this. Yeah,
Kenny and Draza, Envoy coming on allegedly, Octane coming on allegedly. IKON, is this team nasty or what?
I think so. Whenever I look at these squads, I just look like, it's just become natural that when I look at LA Thieves, how does their roster composition compare to the Atlanta FaZe? It's just like, that's what I see, because I think that over the last couple years, they've been such a gold standard that it's like, okay, how do you play catch up and how do you match up with the Atlanta FaZe? Because that's ultimately what you have to compare yourself to place really well in a lot of these tournaments. For example, and I know I keep doing this, but when it comes to Minnesota, as soon as Standy was there and you could see Standy start to play and start to counter what Abizi was doing, now you have a route where, like, you can compete with Atlanta FaZe. And when you look at LA Thieves, I think that's the piece that's missing. I think when you look at their main AR and their flex, I think that they're top 2, top 3. I don't think it get much better than Kenny and Octane. I think those two are absolutely filthy. And it covers all the bases in that if it's 2 ARs, great. If it's 3 SMGs, you have freaking Kenny there on an SMG. Like,
that's scary.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, they absolutely have all the bases covered. I think that Envoy is going to be a question mark, because I think if you take Envoy, and there was a small part of me that was hoping that Envoy would be the 4th piece at NYSL instead of Neptune, because there's no doubt about it, Envoy is an elite talent. I don't think you can question that whatsoever. But what he's been missing is the strategy part of his game, right? He regularly finds himself making rogue plays, trying to make hero plays, being out of position. In fact, the 1v3 that Accuracy had in that map 5 on Moscow S&D against Optic only happened because Envoy pushed forward over towards lobby. If he doesn't do that, it's a 1v4. There's absolutely no way.
Yep.
Right. So he just finds himself making plays like that all the time. And I'm not quite sure LA Thieves has that Clayster type, that Arcides type, that Crim6 type that can really make sure that he's always in the correct positions. And then Draza, it's another small question mark. We've seen Draza absolutely fry, but if he's going to be the fast, pure Slayer, entryman type SMG for LA Thieves, I'm not sure how he compares with Hydra and Abizi and Standy and Shotzi and Kleenex. I think those are really tough matchups for him. I don't think they have that clear type of aggressive SMG player. So I think that they're firmly cemented in that top 7, probably somewhere in the middle of that top 7. But I think when it comes to matchups, they're maybe just missing a bit from the SMG position and how that compares to the other top squads.
So,
I concur.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say I agree. I kind of already said my little thing earlier about LA Thieves. I mean, last year we were like, this roster's so nasty, and then almost every iteration of the LA Thieves roster from there was like, okay, like they're gonna do it. They're about to do it. Like they didn't do it, and I'm not sure if they could do it. Maybe I just have too much recency bias. I want to see how this plays out. I do think Kenny's really good. I think I'll be interested to see if Octane and Kenny can re-spark that same energy that they had during the Black Ops 4 season on LA Thieves when they were making crazy runs. I'm worried about Envoy. I think he was in a really good spot in Optic with that team composition. I'm not sure that this team favors his play style as much as Optics did. So I'll be super interested to see how this team does. I made an ignorant, probably wrong prediction early. If I get that prediction though, I get like some mad.
That'd be
points,
huge.
Right? Also, where's my trophy, guys? What the heck? Am I expected to make my own trophy? What are we doing here? Anyway,
trophy? What are you talking about? Trophies?
Bro, where's my championship belt for winning predictions? I'm pissed. I'm about
Been
to
a great
cut
podcast,
a WWE
guys.
promo.
See you later.
Yeah. Anyway, Kingdom, what are your thoughts on the rumored LA Thieves?
All right, so I'm gonna hot take this one. I think this could be this year's Dallas. And I mean top 4.
We are on the opposite poles of the earth.
Well, IKON as well. He put him in top 7, but I think that I think this team could make a grand final and probably lose to Atlanta FaZe. There's nothing in my head that doesn't say this team that we're looking at, that roster couldn't beat the Scump team, the Toronto team, any of these other teams, depending on how this game plays. Octane has been one of these players that has successfully been a turret like his whole career, where it's like he's like, no, I'm not changing my gameplay or my style. You guys can change the people around me, but I'm always going to drop 40 bombs. I'm always going to be one of the best KDs. I'm always going to be one of the best ARs. And until I get the right teammates, we'll see victories. But until then, I'm just going to play like me. Like Octane is very stubborn in his role and is not willing to do like what Envoy is willing to do, which is the garbage stuff. If Envoy, I don't think he was in the best position at Optic, which is why when I said they would drop people, I said Formal and Envoy would be dropped, because him and Seth clashed in terms of Seth wanted to play the same role that Envoy was comfortable playing. And so Envoy, but in 5v5, he looked like the golden boy, the next king of Optic, because him and Seth could do the same thing with the 5 players. But with 4 players, it didn't work out. So I think this roster is going to come down to Draza. And I hate to say that. It's almost like saying Dallas is going to come down to Vivid, but it actually came down to Illy in a way. But I think that this roster is going to come down to how Draza plays. Envoy is going to provide some IGL along with Kenny, who I think was a top 2. I don't remember his KD, but it was ridiculous all year long. Like Kenny was one of the best at his position, if not the best. They'd never got a roster around him that made sense. TJ, Envoy's better. Venom, Envoy's better. Like Envoy is a better person, I think, to be on this roster than any of the little pieces. Even Hook, because of the challenges he had with playstyle. I think Envoy actually does work with Kenny and Octane. I think Kenny and Octane are going to be one of the most disgusting duos of the year. and they could win a tournament. Like, it's possible. I'm looking at a roster that it's really going to come down to, can Draza keep up? But Draza's disgusting. If Draza does what Vivid did, which is do what his job, Vivid put Dallas in a position to win a tournament, and to place top 3 at champs, and like Vivid put them in good position by doing his job. If Draza can do the same thing and be okay that he's playing with players that have storylines and have been on Optic Gaming, and our Octane, who's one of the best ARs that there's been. And then my last thing would be, they got to stick. I think this team just has to stick. And I don't know what happens with the LA Thieves, but I would just love to see Nadeshot be like, yeah, we want to win, but we're not going to make 9 roster trades this year. We're going to let these guys play together and get some chemistry, and we're going to let the chemistry do the talking. I think this is a team that should just keep playing together, and I think we'll see success. It's hard for me to say that we won't. Like, I'm looking at, Octane's not going to play bad, and Kenny's not going to play bad. The only person that kind of is suspect is really Envoy, but I think the role that he's going to get to have on this roster is going to match the needs of the roster. So that's kind of the way I look at it with this roster. I like it. Octane has not had a freaking team where they've put all these vets around him and all these, and Karma and Apathy, and it's like they've thrown all these veterans around him and said, find success, good luck. And now it's like you're putting an organization around him that has a lot better decision making than some of these orgs that are just throwing cash at players. And I think you're going to see the results.
Dude, you might have just sold me to go the other way. I'm now like, yeah, top 6 is possible. I don't know. I'm a vibes person. I got a bad feeling about that team. I think there's going to be conflict, and it's not going to go well for them. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see. A couple of just quick things here, because there's not much more super rumors outside of that. Paris Legend, that's not how you say it. I just say it that way. Have reached out to multiple. This is from CDL Intel rumor. So, source stuff, not true or false, just speculation. Paris Legion have reached out to multiple challenger players from both EU and NA region, unsure if they have an exact lineup ready to go. Though last week at this time, we were talking about, well, are they even going to be in here anymore? Because something about them not re-upping their trademark or something like that happened. But then they extended. Theory, what's that?
They hired Theory.
Exactly. They actually extended him, right? He was already their coach.
Yeah, he was their coach.
Yeah. So they extended their coach, which is, I can't imagine something that you would do if you're about to, just dip. So I'll be interested to see what they do. Paris's strategy has been interesting from day one. It's always been shocking to me. They just seem to want to do the minimum, pay the players the minimum, and see how it goes. Shoot, man, at least pick up GodRx or something. Do something, Paris. Come on. Don't make me poke you with the stick. Do you guys have any comments on Paris? I'm sorry to sound so negative, but I'm just like, what?
I don't.
What are they doing?
I mean, I don't even know why they. I mean, I love Theory. I think it hurt my heart when he got dropped after winning the first 2 events. When he got dropped in World War II after winning the first 2 events with Kenny in the squad, it hurt me. I was like, dang, bro.
Who did he get dropped for again?
I don't even remember.
Why would you? Yeah.
It was it. I don't even. I was like, dang. And then he really didn't play since then. So I'm kind of like, all right, well, that sucks. You're all of a sudden not a pro anymore. But I'm glad for him that they extended him. But it seems like an interesting decision because of the seasons that they've had. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I think whatever Paris does, it's chalked. I think whatever happens with that 12th spot, that NRG spot, I mean, if you're looking to get into the CDL, if you're a different org, you're like a month too late, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, at this point in time, maybe, sure, you could hope for next year's roster mania, but you better be there at the beginning. There's just nobody left. I mean, you can kind of see what's happening with these other, the Seattle roster, and I think that they have an exciting roster. I think it's probably the most exciting roster for Seattle we've seen in a while, but the top 7 are so loaded, and all those pieces from the other teams have already been snagged up. What are you going to do? It's just, you could throw together some veterans, mix them with some AMs, like what you saw from Seattle, and you can compete with 9, 10, 11, 12, but there's no way you're going to consistently beat Clay Crim. You know what I mean? It's just, so yeah, it's just chalked. I feel bad for him, but it's just too late in the game.
Yeah, I do too. I'm really curious. I mean, if the whole like merger thing is true with Optic and Dallas Empire's squads joining forces, so then you'd have Scump, Dashy, Illy, and then of course Shotzi. I mean, we talked about that team extensively last week, so we don't have to this week. But yeah, that does leave a vacant Chicago, and NRG owns that spot currently. I would imagine if they're staying, we would hear about the moves they're trying to make to acquire a different roster.
Yeah.
I do think. Yeah, that's.
It's hard.
Bro. So we keep saying like, yeah, dude. There's so many great top AMs, or there's so many like you have like some fringe ex pros who are out there. I mean, you got the Parasites of the world. Let's throw them in there. See what we can do. I don't know. Why not? Yeah. Bro, I want so badly for some team to pick up Sensor. Please, bro. Please. I just want to watch. That happen. Why
not? If you're a bottom squad, like pick them up. Like
bro, and if you're new into the league and it's too late to pick up like your Crims and your recently departed Envoys, shoot, man. Start building that brand, get Sensor on there, pick up some crack kids and see what happens. And then if it doesn't happen, next year you go swinging big in roster mania. That's what I would do anyway.
You can make some content.
That's the piece.
Brand.
Yeah, bro.
Content.
Bring in
content.
Bring in Sensor and Parasite, same squad. Let's go.
Bam.
Don't do that.
Come on.
Don't do that.
Don't do
that is pure entertainment. That is pure entertainment. I would pay pay-per-view dollars. I would pay more than a Logan Paul fight to see Sensor and Parasite.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Under a new organization. That would be incredible. That's like reality TV worthy. Anyway, so yeah, whatever's happening with that Optic Chicago, I don't know what's happening. Whatever's happening with it, I'm interested to find out. If it is vacant, I'm interested to see who comes in and what the hell they're able to do with their roster, because yikes. Mutineers, we already talked about them a little bit, but unclear with one of their best players, Neptune, possibly leaving. They extended all their players with Skies, Awakening, Havoc, Yeez. They also, CDL Intel also says they're interested in signing Dav Patey. I'm probably saying his name wrong. I'm going to call him Dav, who plays main AR. And trying to, saying that they're interested in signing a main AR when Skies and Awakening are allegedly on your team, it tells me that they're not. It tells me that maybe they're going to Chicago or wherever. Maybe they're going to Paris. Who knows? Mutineers is looking rough right now. I don't know if it's chalked, but they're in like a rebuild after not even that. It wasn't a good season for that, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, if you're Mutineers, Neptune got away. You still have like a good core. What do?
You either sell off Awakening and plan for next year, because he's one of those. I mean, they have a couple of pieces. Skies, Awakening, and Havoc all could go somewhere else. And they could sell them off and bring in like some of the up and comers, and look at the year and be like, it's a little chalked. Like, let's get rid of these pieces. I mean, maybe IKON knows better than I do. I don't know the mood of Skies and Awakening. They are a great duo. What they're missing is a great duo. Like, you put those two with some vets, they would do great. They would fry. They'd be phenomenal. But there's no vets left. So it's kind of like, what do you do with this team?
Man, I'm right here. I'm right here, Kingdom.
I almost called you Optic Midnight. I was like, yeah, pick up Optic Midnight.
I mean, it's not false.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Like, forever. Forever Optic Midnight.
So I think they're going to be the same team they were last year, where they're going to be good. Awakening's going to do amazing stuff, and we're going to be like, oh my gosh, look at that. He's amazing. Drop the 20 bomb and search. And then they're going to get top 8. Hopefully. They're going to try for it, that 8 spot. And they're going to, technically, even with this squad they're forming, it really depends on how London plays and how the, Paris random roster, the accuracy team, and like the Seattle and the Chicago spot. Like, it depends on those teams. they technically could sneak into champs. But who wants to just keep getting, top 8?
Listen, I don't know. I hate to be the naysayer, but I just what do they do? I mean, they have 3 ARs. They lost their best SMG. They're at a point where do you bring back Havoc and then do you pair with another veteran SMG that is decent? But like, it's just, I don't know. I'm at this point where if I'm one of the bottom 5 squads, I don't know what you do right now because the top 7 are so unbelievably stacked. I mean, I don't know. I just look at this squad and I think it's frustrating. But on the other hand, like even if they kept Neptune and they had the same 4 from last year, that's still not a top 7 squad. So they're at a point where they're stuck in this middle of the road where you have Skies, you have Awakening. They can compete. We saw it all throughout last year that they can be a really good AR duo, but it's not good enough to hang with the top 7 squads. So I don't know what you do if you're Florida at this point in time. It almost seems like they're kind of going down the Seattle route of old where they have a couple AR talents, just like Seattle did last year with Gunless and Octane, and you're looking for SMG pieces. I'd be shocked if they're even better than this proposed London squad, because I think this London squad is a squad of AMs that can play really well. Zero's the big question mark when it comes to London, but I don't know. They're probably going to compete with Seattle, but other than that, I just think that they've kind of missed the boat. I'm not quite sure where they go from here.
Sad. The Mutineers missed the boat. Did you do that on purpose? I thought that was kind of funny. That was just say you did it on purpose. I got you.
Definitely.
I mean, London, the rumored London squad. So many question marks for me. Not even sure what to say about it. Mostly amateur players. Afro's disgusting. They could be nasty.
Look in the chat. There's a lot of names that I totally forgot about. Like Vivid, Paul X, Shawnee, Alex, Scraps, Wuskins, Temp, Zaptius, TJ,
Venom. You could still
compose something. You could put something together.
You could still solidify 8th place.
You could get scrappy depending on how the new car goes. I do wonder how Mutineers ended up in this position in roster. Yep. They strike me as a team who's willing to go in and go to bat for who they're trying to get, and it doesn't. Based on the rumors, it's not clear that they were able to do that. FaZe. Yep, they won. They're sticking allegedly.
Dude,
you'll imagine.
Did you guys watch Simp's gameplay
today? Yeah, he's disgusting.
Is it on the new game?
Goodness, yes, it's on his channel. He's uploaded multiple videos.
I'm gonna go watch it.
And he's frying pros. It's disgusting. Like, ugh.
He dropped 82 in a lobby.
And the game wasn't even over.
Yeah, the game still had like another 40 kills to go or something, and he dropped 82 with like Envoy was in there, a bunch of content creators were in there. Like,
was he playing Brian Saint? What the heck?
Yep, Saint was in there.
I'm just kidding, Saint. I love Saint. That's crazy though. That's crazy, bro.
Dude is frying. Yeah.
Literally Patrick Mahomes of Call of Duty. And that brings us to our final roster, guys. Minnesota ROKKR.
Let's go.
We'll talk about it next week.
I thought she really ended the show. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, well, I am about to. Guys, we will be back next week for the final, the conclusion, the ending fin of the rotation podcast for 2021. Now, we're going to go out with a bang. Hopefully there's some roster developments, more stuff to talk about next week. Obviously, the beta will have happened, so we could talk about Vanguard and get nerdy with that, because we really didn't talk about that this week. But yeah, final episode next week for the 2021 season, with the caveat that if something super lit happens in the off season, we might just fire this thing up, dude. We might just we might not be able to stop ourselves from coming on here and talking about whatever is going on. So, I don't know. Guys, I think I did a really good job of this whole episode pretending I don't know anything. All right, guys, that's it, though. We'll see you guys next week on Tuesday. No, IKON, you're a beast doing this, not feeling well with your picture.
With your super smile, yeah. great.
Yeah, super happy. He probably doesn't feel as happy as he looks. Kingdom showed up, dropping the knowledge as always, and I hosted the thing. I was talking shit the whole time. Dude, I'm gonna miss it when we stop. We're ending it because it's in the off season. It's gonna be a lot of like, man, I can't wait for the season to start. Man, it's gonna be cool.
What if this roster happens? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Kingdom's 8th different background in the last 8 episodes?
You're around the world.
It's like a new thing. Like, I can't wait to see what it's going to be next time.
My dude adjusts his desk and his monitor, his webcam more than anyone I've ever seen. I like it though. You never know what you're going to get. Sometimes he's in front of some sort of like fireplace mantle thing. Yeah, and now is that a real plant? A real tree?
Nope, it's fake.
Okay. Well, I do like your dresser. I do really like that.
Thank you.
That's nice. Good for you. Yo, I don't think Icon's smile is creepy, Matthew. Yo, beach show. He looks happy.
I'm excited.
Bro. He's so excited for Roster Mania. Coming in here dunking on him. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you guys next Tuesday at 7:30 Central. Shout out producer Shannon. Shout out the chat. We'll see ya.